All right. Hello again. Yet another book review for all you bookworms out there who are not interested in Oprah's book club, so to speak. Surprise, surprise, it's another Manson book review. Um, this time I want to kind of go over a few books that I've read since I got back into the case after reading Shadow or Santa Susanna by Adam Gorightly, which, by the way, if you didn't see my last video, you need to get that book. You need to get that book. Anyways, enough of that. After I read Shadow over Santa Susanna, you can get that right. I decided to get back on my Manson kick. So, went through Amazon. I looked at a few books that were related to the case, and something caught my eye, and it reminded me a couple years ago. I think it was '07. I had a friend tell me there's this book that just came out. It's only hardcover. It's a fiction piece, not a nonfiction, a fiction piece based on the Manson family. Get this: the Manson family, the Rolling Stones, Brian Jones era Rolling Stones. To me, the only real, truly incredible incarnation of the Rolling Stones. Even though I'm a huge Stones fan, don't get me wrong, I love them to this day. But to me, the real Rolling Stones is the Brian Jones era Rolling Stones. But anyways, it's a combination of the Manson family, Rolling Stones, and Kenneth Anger. Now, we obviously know the Beausoleil Anger connection, but what this book does is it pretty much kind of examines the death of the '60s. It really kind of puts it into perspective. You've got Altamont, obviously. You've got the Manson murders, which, those signify the death of the '60s. I mean, anyone that was around those times or anyone that's read anything about it pretty much will put those two events as the end of the '60s as they were known. It's interesting because it's kind of done like Tarantino style, where every chapter is about a different character, and it goes back in time, it goes into the future. It's really, really interesting, and it's pretty accurate. I mean, you've got the second chapter pretty much talking about Brian Jones, Keith Richards, and Mick Jagger living in squalor, and their West London, Edith Grove apartment, where pretty much the birth of the Stones took place. The first chapter, I think, is one that is pretty cool. The only thing that I would like to say is that doesn't really go along with the accuracy. Otherwise, the whole book is very, very accurate. This guy definitely did his homework, so to speak. There's one part where Manson and Beausoleil are in a truck. They're going to creeper crawl a house. And this is in the middle of the daytime. Very descriptive, very, very well done. However, there's a part where Manson stops at a gas station and picks up a 12-pack of beer, which, is right there as a red flag. Anyone worth their weight knows that the Manson family, and Charles Manson in particular, absolutely despised alcohol, thought it was Babylon's drug, pretty much sedated people, which in actuality it does. I mean, I drink, don't get me wrong, but it's hypocrisy when marijuana is illegal and alcohol remains legal. But anyways, that to me was the only really dead giveaway that, okay, this is definitely a fiction piece. But it's interesting because you've got Kenneth Anger, it all kind of connects. And if you get a chance, definitely check out Sway. I think it's by Zachary Lazar, I think is his name. I don't have the book right in front of me, but if you do get a chance, it's called Sway, Sway, by Zachary Lazar. And it's a very, very good book. But anyways, after that, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna continue on my Manson kick. I read that book in about 2 days. So I'm going to get Taming of the Beast by Ed George. Now, this, my friends, is a good book. If you get a chance, read this. Ed George knew Manson. Probably still does. He's retired. He was a prison counselor, I think, at the medical facility in California, as well as Corcoran. And just by fate, he's kind of traveled around, and when he would get switched over and transferred to another prison, Manson would get transferred over there as well. So he's known Manson ever since his incarceration after, I think, in 71 when he was finally, put into death row, and up until, I think, their early 90s is when he retired. So this guy knows a lot about it. And, I don't know about you, but I'm always interested in Manson's life after the case. So many books go into the case itself, the murder case, what happened up until he was released from Terminal Island until he was incarcerated in San Quentin, waiting for the gas chamber. There's not really any books besides this one that really goes into his life. Now, you've got Newell Emmons' book, which is bullshit. I've never, ever I've taken it at face value. Take it with a grain of salt, believe me. But Manson always used to say that Emmons wrote a book on Emmons, Manson in his own words. Don't waste your time. But anyways, it's really, Taming the Beast is really the only book that accurately gives you a taste of what Manson's life is like behind bars. The only thing that I kind of found ridiculous was the bubbling cauldron story. If you haven't read the book, I'm not going to ruin it for you. Basically, there's towards the end when Ed George is talking to Manson about writing this book. Manson gets really angry. Evidently, this is typical press, making out to be Manson's larger than life witch doctor type guy. Sends out his minions to Ed George's house and leaves a cauldron full of bubbling goo that stinks really bad, that stained his concrete, that he still can't get off to this day. It just sounds really bizarre. But anyways, besides that, it's a great book. I was lucky enough to have a day off from both my jobs, and I read it within about 7 hours, 6 or 7 hours, and I took a couple breaks. But that book, just like Shadow over Santa Susana, is like the crack cocaine of Manson books. Get that, it's good. And you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, this guy, what books doesn't he like? Well, I'll show you what book I don't like. And I've heard stories about this one, but I didn't listen to people. I always don't knock it until you try it. It's my saying. So this brings me to this piece of dirt. Charles Manson, Music, Mayhem, Murder by Tommy Udo. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But this guy... Oh, man. This is a waste of my $3. I got this at a used bookstore and figured why not. The only interesting thing about this book is that it tries to focus on the music aspect of everything and not the murders or whatever. It tries to focus on Manson's music and Manson's, basically, his influence, the artists that have been influenced by Manson. And vice versa. Of course, there's the Guns N' Roses, Marilyn Manson, Trent Reznor living in the Cielo Drive house. You've got your typical stuff that everyone knows. So there's not really anything interesting in that book. I think the only interesting thing is that it talks a little bit about the recording sessions that Manson, had with Terry Melcher. It gives some dates, but other than that, it's stuff we've already known. It's a waste of time. So do yourself a favor and don't read that book. On a completely different note, there's another